Florida Panthers will try to become the second South Florida team to even their championship series when they face Vegas tonight in Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final. Panthers beaten 5-2 by the Golden Knights on Saturday. And they weren't just beaten, their two big stars were completely nullified. Matthew Tkachuk had 2 shots, 14 minutes in penalties, and the wall and net that has been Sergei Bobrovsky was breached for 4 goals against on 33 shots. You look at comeback wins in postseason in NHL history. Avalanche leading the way with 10 alongside the Pittsburgh Penguins. Afterwards, here's head coach Paul Maurice, who said, you know what, hey, it's just a game.
The losing team talks about too many of something, and the winning team talks about the fabulousness of all other things. And it's 2-2 till that puck gets turned over, so it was a tight game. Both teams make mistakes. We lost the first game in the Boston series well and got a little better. Then we lost 2 more, got a little better. Everybody just breathe. Right? I feel like you people have been here, you're tight. Gotta loosen you up a little bit.
All right, let's welcome in CBS Sports HQ hockey analyst Alan May to talk about this. Alan, Paul Maurice was talking to the media there, but, I mean, you can bet he sent that message to his entire team and perhaps to Matthew Tkachuk. Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final can be a bit tense, especially if you haven't been there before. It was certainly frustrating for Tkachuk. If you're Maurice, I mean, what are you saying to your star ahead of Game 2?
I don't think he has to say anything. He's so self-driven, highly motivated that I expect him to come out and be the best player on the ice tonight for the Florida Panthers. And, you know, there were mistakes made all the way around by the Panthers, and every one of those goals had something to it. The first goal against was a coverage mistake. The second was a seeing eye where they didn't clear out the lanes to get the puck, you know, so Bobrovsky could see the puck. So with the way Tkachuk has played in these playoffs, he's relentless. He never quits. He won't quit on his team. I expect him to be back, and he's going to have a little bit more intensity to his game tonight because just the way he plays. He's a fired-up individual. I expect him to come up big again tonight.
Yeah, you look at him there on that list of most points in his first season with the franchise. 130 in NHL history. He is having an historic postseason with the Florida Panthers as they go back to the Stanley Cup Final. As a team, though, obviously discipline a big part. Panthers 46 minutes in penalties. Vegas had 18. Going into Game 1, Sergei Bobrovsky riding that 5-game win streak, a 7-game road winning streak. Both of those are now gone. 4 goals against on 33 shots. He didn't play badly, Alan, but still, what is your level of concern with Bob going into tonight?
I have 0. My level of concern is 0 with him because when I look at the mistakes that were made on the goals that were scored, you know, the third goal was a blatant giveaway. Basically, the shooter in a one-on-one situation with the goaltender has the advantage when he's coming in on a mini breakaway like he did. The first goal against, there's no way he could get backdoor on that coverage. He did so many good things in that game, and it's good that the streaks are over. You know, it's a good thing to bounce back rather than wait on it. And I just thought the way that the Vegas Golden Knights approach goaltender, you see on that shot there, how many layers of players were in front of Bobrovsky. So he's late to react on that. But every goalie tender in the National Hockey League is. I don't think his goaltending coach is going to complain about it. I expect him to come back and be miraculous once again. There's just something about the Florida Panthers that the attitude that they've displayed throughout these playoffs, the teams that they've knocked off, first place overall, second place overall, fourth place overall, and now it's the team that's in 5th place overall during the course of the regular season. They've got so much fight in them, and I still think this is going to be a long series. Luck matters, and I remember a few years back when the Washington Capitals went in and they kind of got their doors blown out in the first game, even more so than the score of this one in Vegas. But they built a lot of confidence and they really figured out what they needed to do to score a Marc-Andre Fleury. I think right now the number one factor that the Florida Panthers have to worry about is how do they get pucks behind Adin Hill. And I think instead of just creating and worrying about shots because he's such a big goalie, I think they have to shoot past the players that are beyond where he is placed positionally and get some tap-ins, redirects, deflections from behind his body versus trying to do everything in front of him.
As you mentioned, I mean, that first game, winning that first game, I mean, at least in recent history, it hasn't necessarily been a great omen. Vegas did it back in 2018 and they ended up losing that series, dropped 4 straight games to the Washington Capitals. But you talk about Hill, we obviously want to touch on him. 8-3 so far. It's his first postseason. He's been in the NHL for 6 years, his first postseason. But, Alan, he's playing like a veteran so far.
Oh, he's incredible right now. He's just like Bobrovsky. You know, these teams aren't there if their goaltenders don't step up and play with the amount of confidence that they do right now. When you look at what Adin Hill's doing, he's got complete and utter confidence in himself. His teammates have that in him. He's only played 11 full games so far in the playoffs, but his numbers are beautiful. The save percentage, the goals against, but the most important thing is that win-loss record, and he's looking for 3 more wins in these playoffs. And the big thing, he's been challenging shooters. It almost looks, I don't know if he's 6'4" or 6'5", but he looks like he's about 7 feet tall back there, and monstrous shoulders. And I think they've got to get, as I said, pucks behind him because there's too much in front. Like when you go one-on-one with him, he's just ginormous looking. So they've got to find a way to get behind him. That play there, Cousins will regret that the rest of his life if they don't win this series, because you've got to really drill that. You've got to put a lot more sauce on that puck to beat Hill because he's so in the zone right now. He scores that, it's a completely different game.
Well, and the thing about Hill too, Alan, and I mean, you'll be able to relate to this, is that, he's usually you have a goalie and, he makes a save and kind of things start to muck up a little bit and he kind of steps off, he skates away a little bit and lets his teammates kind of take care of some of that nastiness. But Hill is right in there. He's not taking any guff from any of these Florida Panthers.
No, he's not. And, he's on like a 3-week run of confidence like he's never had in his entire life. So don't change anything. He's got to eat the same things, sleep the same way, do the same things, drive the same route. Because right now, he's just so in the zone. He is so on top of it right now. And that's the number one thing you need in a goaltender, in my opinion. If they have confidence in themselves, your teammates, your coaching staff will have confidence in you. And right now, he's just playing a very brave, brash brand of hockey. And his team is winning games as a result of it. I can say the same at the other end as well. These teams, once again, spectacular goaltending gets you to the finals. You can have all the goals you want, but you need goaltending to be better than it's ever been. And that's what these two teams have in common right now. So I expect huge bounce back from Bobrovsky. And for the Panthers, they've got to crack the code on the big guy.
Talking about Vegas still, there are 6 players remaining from that team that lost in the Stanley Cup Final in their first season in the league. They call themselves the Golden Misfits. 3 of those players scored in Game 1. Alan, how important has this group been to this team during the postseason, not just on the ice, but off of it?
Well, the biggest thing is they're so tied into the community. And, the fan base is just incredible there. And these guys are loved. They're beloved. And they have all stood up. And Jonathan Marchessault right now, he's the Conn Smythe leading candidate for the Misfits. Riley Smith scores timely goals. They got those guys for nothing from Florida. William Karlsson, he became a real player after he left Columbus, and he had a 40-plus goal season the first year in Vegas. Carrier, he hits everything that moves. Shea Theodore, that was highway robbery when they got him as well. He's been so good. I could not believe that they got him in the expansion draft. It was an awful decision by Anaheim. I think a bunch of those players aren't even playing anymore. And you just take those 6 guys. They've all risen up. And the other thing that they do have, Jeremy, on their roster right now, they've got other guys that have won Stanley Cup. Chandler Stevenson in Washington. Martinez got those Stanley Cups with the Los Angeles Kings. And I know I'm missing some other names, but they've got a good group of players that have some scar tissue, have some good experience. Some of it's bad, tough scar tissue like those Misfits. But the other guys like Stevenson and Martinez, they can lean on them. Jonathan Quick's there, helping out with Adin Hill, keep his emotions in check. So they've got a lot of things going their way.
I was going to say, Quick's a guy you obviously want to touch on because of the fact that he's the backup goalie for Hill and a guy who's won a Stanley Cup, certainly to your point, keeping Hill in check. All right, so the game line tonight has Vegas favored at home, the total sitting at 5.5. What's your pick for Game 2? Who do you think takes this one?
I'm gonna go with the Panthers. They scored first last game. I thought some of the penalty calls early were somewhat questionable. They've got to keep their emotions in check. And sometimes Vegas is a very different arena to play in. You think of it, all the teams on the Eastern Conference have only been there a couple times in their existence because you take the lockout years, or not the lockout, the pandemic years, and teams were getting across to the other side. So it's kind of a different arena. It's dark down in the caverns of it. You got that pregame show that feels like it takes a half hour. You've got to get used to all that. So it's kind of a sensory overload in the first game. I expect the Panthers to come out and shut down and blanket and do a better job in their own zone, manage the puck better, because the mistakes that they made with the puck led to their demise the other night. I expect everyone to be better, a little more focused, back in the saddle. So I'm going to go with the Panthers tonight.
Yeah, going to a Knights game is like going to dinner at medieval times, the way they have that pregame show going on. CBS Sports HQ hockey analyst Alan May joining us to discuss Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final tonight in Vegas as the Golden Knights look to take a 2-0 lead. But the Florida Panthers are going to have something to say about that. As Alan mentioned, this is a team with a ton of belief. They've knocked off 3 of the top 5 teams in the National Hockey League on their run to the Stanley Cup Final. Game 2 tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern. It's an 8 p.m. Eastern puck drop the whole way through. Game 3 Thursday here in Florida.